Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss here with Brandon Barrick.
Hey, happy to be here.
And we are looking ahead to Agatha All Along, Episode 7. Episode 6 of this series was a pretty significant one that began to answer a lot of questions. However, actor Joe Locke, who plays Billy Maximoff / William Kaplan, has said that Episode 7, which seems to be a Lilia Calderu-centered episode, he says that Episode 7 is the best of the series, his favorite. And I think the fact that we've seen Billy Kaplan, we've seen Joe Locke's big episode, this is not going to be his big episode, that says something about how crazy this episode is going to be. And will Episode 7 of Agatha All Along be the Lost Constant episode?
Okay.
And those of you who watched ABC's Lost know what I'm talking about. The Constant, the Desmond episode, the one about a time traveler unconsciously stuck throughout time or unstuck throughout time. It's connecting all the dots. And is Lilia our Desmond? We're going to talk about that in today's episode of The Sneak Peek.
Oh, I'm excited.
And yes, welcome back to The Sneak Peek. It is a show where we look ahead to the future of fandom. We do this every Sunday. Normally, Jessica Clemons is here with us, but she is having a blast at New York Comic Con this weekend. So thankfully, joining me has been Brandon Barrick.
That's right. I'm so happy to be here. Sorry Jess couldn't be here and you're stuck with me today. But hey, if you yourself are unstuck in time, go right now to New York Comic Con and say hello to Jessica, because you can do that because you're unstuck in time.
That's right. That's right. We are fixed on this timeline and we can't do it. But Jessica will be back in the coming days, and you'll see all of us here. I kind of want to keep like a mixing rotation of all of us, you know, just so we can see all of our faces.
I fantasize about having my own personal chef, somebody who can do all the hard work of menu planning and meal prep. Someday I'll get there, but in the meantime, I have Cook Unity. Cook Unity is basically a pipeline from your home to dozens of talented chefs that cook delicious, inventive meals, fresh every day in regional micro kitchens, not warehouse production facilities. Their roster of all-star chefs include Food Network alums, James Beard Award winners, and acclaimed restaurateurs. Cook Unity is the first chef-to-consumer platform that delivers freshly prepared, pre-selected meals right to your door weekly. The subscription is super flexible. You can pause, skip weeks, or cancel at any time. It's super easy to do. You can pick from over 350 meals each week based on your dietary needs or what kind of cuisine you like. Monday night, you could have Ruben Garcia's crispy tilapia. Tuesday's dinner could be Esther Choi's teriyaki roasted salmon. Oh. And Wednesday, you could have Stacey Barang's grilled Asian hanger steak. Go to cookunity.com/nrockstars50 or click the link in the description and you can use the code NRockstars50 to get 50% off your first order of Cook Unity meals to try them out yourself.
I'm really excited for Episode 7, Erik, because like Zach pointed this out yesterday on the break room, but like this is our penultimate episode because we're getting 8 and 9 together, and I think they'll be so closely tied together, like narratively and structured wise, that like this is an episode where I think they really want to kind of shake things up, put things in their place for the finale, and we'll kind of have like a long finale the following week right before Halloween.
That's a good point. Yeah, if we're going to have to like merge 8 and 9 together, it's going to be like a weird thing because we're used to getting one dose of story each week, but now in the final week, they're going to be merged together. So we're going to have to look at like, well, some of these writers plotted out this episode to be just a singular episode and might not have known what the release schedule was going to be. But overall, Marvel Studios and Jack Schaefer probably felt it was okay to release them back to back on the final week.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, there was a lot of confusion around how many episodes we were getting.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they weren't sure if 8 and 9 were going to be 2 episodes or maybe one longer episode. You know, I think Marvel Television has a history of fudging episode numbers where we're promised a bunch of episodes and then we either get less or sometimes we get more. Even from the beginning days of WandaVision, we thought there was going to be a secret 9th episode, right?
Or secret 10th
episode.
Yeah.
There was a big mystery around that. But shows like, you know, She-Hulk certainly shook up its episode count and even the structure and even the release schedule. Echo was a show that went from like 9 episodes to 5 episodes.
Yeah,
so,
She-Hulk, definitely.
Yeah, She-Hulk.
The origin story was moved in the episode order.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, that had a lot of changes because of the pandemic, but a lot of changes there. So I wonder if this like finale of 8 and 9 was maybe just going to be one episode, and then they kind of split it into 2, but they wanted to get it all out before Halloween. I don't know. I don't know their thinking there.
Yeah, I also had my conspiracy theory that they wanted to get it in before the election because otherwise it's going to be like the night after election day, and they just wanted to like they know that the counts are still probably going to be going on 24 and 48 hours after Election Day, and they just didn't want to compete with like all the political coverage. I don't know if that's the reason why, but I do think that there might have been something found in the edit with the structure, especially going between episode 4 and episode 5. Episode 5 was shorter than usual. And Jack Schaefer said that there was a lot of exposition on the page that led to the scripts being like a bit fatter than usual. And then in the edit, it ended up just coming faster. But I don't buy that explanation just because all these episodes would have a lot of exposition. There's not like there was more action in this than there would have been action in episode's 1 script. I think episode 3 had a lot of action in it just from like what characters were seeing when they were all on their own.
Right.
And then in episode 5, they were all kind of in the same room the whole time. It wasn't until the end where there was some nonverbal moments with like Billy just revealing his Wiccan identity. So I think the fact that episode 4 ended with this weird, like, after they got out of the recording studio, we were back on the road and the campfire, and it felt like too long of a falling action for an episode.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, we were past the recording studio for like a long time.
Yeah,
and a lot happened, and characters walked away, came back. That's a great point. It was like a little oddly structured there, that episode. Yeah. It felt like 2 short episodes pushed together.
Yeah, I feel like they moved certain, like that scene from the end of episode 4 maybe was at the beginning of episode 5 at one point. But they wanted to move things faster. They wanted to begin episode 5 with the Salem 7 already getting in there. Like, but I wonder if they just didn't have a good scene to show, or they didn't want to reveal how the Salem 7 got in. But I think the fact that a lot of people were a little confused how exactly the Salem 7 got in there, and it was just kind of this rushed line that might even been ADR'd but from Patti LuPone saying that, oh, the hole from the summoning spell was left open. It just felt like a little rushed at the beginning of episode 5.
I agree.
I feel like you wouldn't have written it that way if you wanted to make it clear. So now we're going into episode 7, and from what we can tell from trailer footage, this is the episode that's going to be the Lilia Calderu trial. It's going to take place in some kind of castle. And what's weird is there is a shot that looks like it's going to come right after the end of episode 6, where it's Agatha and Teen together, Muddy on Agatha's account, walking up to this castle across the drawbridge that has the phases of the moon on it. They're not with Lilia or Jen. But then we see on the inside, it might be a different location. But there is like an interior shot of this location where Lilia is dressed as Glinda, the Good Witch of the North. Agatha is dressed as the Wicked Witch of the West. Teen is dressed as Maleficent. Jen is there dressed as the evil witch from Snow White.
Right.
There are swords that are dropping down from the ceiling. In the center of the room is a tarot card table. And then a lot of these other shots, the Salem 7 are there attacking them. And Lilia seems to be doing all this cool stuff to like combat that. That might involve like an inversion of gravity that causes everyone to float up. And I just think that could be the tower. And so I don't know if that is the same location as the exterior castle that Agatha and Teen Billy are walking up to. But I think all of this can be in the mix, as well as a shot that we saw in a recent promo of just showing where Lilia and Jen went to on the other side of that mud submersion. I have a lot of questions on like what exactly Billy was doing when and where they went and why they haven't come back out of the mud yet. But is there anything else you think that might come up in episode 7 that we should put on our evidence board right now?
Yeah, the mud thing is interesting because I feel like, isn't there a shot of like Jennifer Kale coming out of the ground, but it looks like she's in Westview, right? It doesn't look like she's coming out in the road.
Yes.
But it would be weird if like Jennifer and Lilia are back in Westview and then they're like, we got to get back to the road again. Like, can they go to is the door still there in Agatha's house? I don't even know that. There's also in the trailer footage, right, this kind of like room where it's just Agatha and Teen. It's kind of purple. There's like a clock, a countdown on the ceiling. She's touching his head. You've theorized that's maybe a morgue with a bunch of bodies in there. And now I think one of the biggest revelations that the show has given is that Teen isn't looking to resurrect his mother. Teen Billy Kaplan or Billy Maximoff, he wasn't even like, he didn't really have memories of the Scarlet Witch. He was more concerned about Tommy, and like that's what he wants. And I think that's like a fun surprise I didn't see coming. I think we all assumed, oh, he wants his mom back, he's gonna resurrect the Scarlet Witch, and that's how we get Wanda back in the 616. But they're going for something completely different, and he doesn't even seem to care about getting Wanda back or having any memories of her, of any knowledge. The Variety article stated that, when Billy Maximoff takes over Billy Kaplan's body, he says the word Tommy, and that's all he really knows or remembers.
Yeah.
He doesn't remember anything about what Billy Maximoff went through in the Hex.
Right. I think he didn't know until Ralph Boner told him
Right.
that there was another kid.
Because, like, the public wouldn't know about kids, right?
Right.
Only people who were in the Hex would know about the kids.
Yeah.
And it seems like the government has kind of shut them down. I guess this is the DDoC is telling them not to say anything, which, you know, if you kind of follow the history of the DDoC, it's in a weird spot right now where it's probably being controlled by the government, the U.S. government. It used to be a separate entity, kind of like the FBI or the CIA. But after all the mess that happened in Far From Home, you know, when Edith got taken over by Mysterio and blah, 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 we know the government has come in. They've taken all that stuff. They own it now. We saw it being used in Miss Marvel, right? They were using the Stark drones to catch Kamala Khan. So the DDoC is like this kind of powerful entity owned by the U.S. government. So they've stepped in. They've told everyone, like, oh, this was just an Avengers training gone awry. Classic excuse. And yeah, the public doesn't know about these kids. So Billy hearing that for the first time kind of confirms, like, oh, this is who Tommy is to me, right? He might be felt that it was his brother, but it really solidifies it that they had kids, and he's one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's going to be in the mix. I think those answers might have to come in episode 8 and 9. If I'm just looking at like episode 7 as a penultimate episode, I feel like it's got to connect the dots from Lilia's perspective. We haven't gotten like a real Lilia point of view character and episode, and I think that's what's coming. So I just want to go back through everything weird that Lilia has done. And Jessica made a really great video about this in recent weeks. Everything Lilia saw, go watch that video because she goes into a lot of detail on it. We just want to catch up with the new stuff that's
there's
been
a couple
confirmed
new
since
things.
then. Yeah. So in episode 2, she was in her clairvoyant shop back in the kitchen area and started screaming as the lights were changing, and that was called back in episode 5 in the cabin, where she goes, I hated this the first time, and Billy said, Lily's being weird again. It seemed like those two moments were linked. And then we pointed this out in our episode 5 breakdown that when Alice is trying to subdue Agatha, that was probably connected to the episode 4 line in the recording studio when Lilia told Alice, don't. And then the line in episode 3 in the beach mansion where Lilia told Agatha, try to save Agatha, and smush those together, and you get Alice, don't try to save Agatha, kind of a warning from the future. And I feel like episode 7 is going to show her trying to go back to these 2 different moments in time to give that warning. In episode 6, the most recent episode, Lilia says to William Kaplan in the tent at his bar mitzvah, the tower reversed. And it felt like a kind of an unhinged line, right? Because he, I think, might be aware of tarot cards. We know from his bedroom that he had a stack of tarot cards in there, and he's literally standing in front of the tapestry showing the tower, and that's probably what she saw in the crystal ball because he was upside down, and then the tower literally was upside down. And tarot cards, when you turn them upside down, had different meanings. In this case, the tower upside down would mean, like a resistance to change that you know is coming, as opposed to just the change itself. Also, her decision to paint the sigil. That didn't seem motivated by anything very clear in that scene, but obviously she did it for a reason.
Sure.
So that seems to be something that needs a justification. In episode 3, in the beach mansion, when her face was puffed up, she goes, I love you guys. And that seemed to be a little, I don't know. It
seemed out of place.
Maybe a little wine drunk, or do we think that was something?
I thought it was something more than just her being a little wine drunk or whatever, because it doesn't seem to affect anything else. She's not that way at any other point in the episode. It was just right then. And the way you're phrasing it, do you think she's at a point in the future going back kind of Days of Future Past style and hopping into her body to do these things and say these things? Or is it like she's tuned into a frequency and she's picking up radio signals and saying them, and it's not so much a force from the future driving it? It's more she's picking up these things from the future, and because it's her saying them in the future, she's picking them up and broadcasting them in the past.
That she's just kind of repeating what she's hearing.
I guess it's like, will episode 7 show us a moment where she decides, like, I got to go back to the past to set all these things in motion, like a time turner in Harry Potter, the third one. Or is it she's just kind of accidentally picking up these broadcasts from the future?
I think that Lilia is consciously the way Logan in Days of Future Past does, or the way Desmond in Lost does, flashing around. Like her consciousness, in one moment she's in the year 2026, and then she blinks, and then something happens, something comes over her, and she opens her eyes again, and she's sitting in the clairvoyant tent in 2023 at this kid's bar mitzvah and says and does something. How familiar are you with Lost and Desmond's arc?
I'm not that familiar with Lost.
Great. No, this is good because I want to have an excuse.
Is this
to
an
catch everyone up.
intervention? Is this an intervention?
It's okay, and there's a lot of people who aren't caught up on Lost, and it's like, for a lot of people, they just couldn't get past the first season.
It was so cool, and everyone was talking about it. I was like, I don't watch Lost.
You know what? And it was a very good show. There were better shows on TV, and I'm imagining you in 2006, and you're probably like, I have better ways to spend my time than to dive into this lore. So I don't blame you, Brandon. I knew you in 2006, and it's okay that you
I had to watch
it.
Sports Night. That's what I was focused on at the time.
They were big years for the Florida Gators.
We had a lot.
So we were watching a lot of
football
games.
and basketball was really pumping at the time.
We had Joakim Noah and Tim Tebow that we could root for. Big years for us. But yeah. So the Lost episode that I'm referring to is, for many Lost heads, the best episode of Lost, and it's called The Constant, and it's about a character named Desmond Hume, and Desmond is a character who gets revealed at the beginning of season 2. Lost spoilers, but you've had over 15 years to look into this.
I know there's 2 planes, right? Or there's 2 sections of the plane.
Yes.
2 groups on the island. I know that much.
More than 2,
okay.
Brandon. Multiple different sections of people are on the island. We're going to have so much fun talking about Lost. So Desmond Hume is played by Henry Ian Cusick, and he gets revealed at the beginning of season 2. Season 1 ends with Locke and Jack finding the hatch.
Okay,
or
I know the hatch.
They actually found it earlier, but they finally opened the hatch at the end of season 1. And the final shot of season 1 is this like Shawshank Redemption type shot where the camera just goes lower and lower and lower, and you're like, oh my God, what's in the hatch? Season 2 premieres like one of the coolest things, and you just start with like Henry Ian Cusick as a character we know as Desmond, a Scotsman who just kind of wakes up in some kind of weird laboratory setting where he's in a bunk, and he's wakes up every morning, and we hear the same record that he plays, play your own kind of music. And then he has to enter these numbers into a computer terminal and blah, 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 blah. I can't spend this whole episode just talking about Lost. But when
in the bunker, I know this, there's episodes of Dharma and Greg, right?
Yeah, that's in the bunker. Right. That's the Dharma Initiative.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just to
the Dharma and Greg initiative is to get the show back on the air. We've done all these reboots, guys. Let's reboot Dharma and Greg. What are we waiting for?
To fast track my recap of Desmond is, at some point in the show, he makes a decision to try to avert disaster, and he gets crazy irradiated with electromagnetic energy and teleports and wakes up naked somewhere else on the island. And we're like, how did you survive? And he is basically, we see him kind of like confused, like he can kind of see the future a little bit. He's a lot like Lilia on this show, and everyone's like, what, how do you know things, like what is going on? And then throughout like season 3, we're like, wait, you can kind of see the future, like you are weirdly like unstuck from time, like his brain is flashing around at different points in his own historical timeline. And then in season 4, we come to an episode called The Constant, and I'm not going to recap everything in the episode, but basically it's from Desmond's point of view, and he has been jumping around so much in his timeline that his brain is getting scrambled, and if he doesn't do something to fix it, his brain is going to melt and he's going to die, and it's happening real fast. And so what a physicist who has joined the crew has told him is, you need to find something that is called a constant in your life. You need to find something that has existed at all points in your life to ground you basically in your history, and you kind of have just like some stability in your life. And he said a constant can be an object, it can be a setting, like something that has just been a constant throughout your life, because everything else is a variable. You need to find that kind of grounding constant force. And I'm gonna get emotional, but Desmond realizes that his constant is Penny, his long love, and this is just someone he's never been able to work it out for. They've always just been ships in the night, just kind of, it never really worked out. Penny's father, Charles Widmore, is actively trying to disrupt their marriage or their relationship, and then finally he's able to get a hold of Penny at like one of their biggest fights in their life, and he's able to get a hold of her while he's in the present timeline on the island, and it's a beautifully scripted and scored conversation, and he's able to heal himself by reconnecting with his constant. But what's really cool about the constant episode is it just jumps around in time, and you see it from Desmond's point of view, and you can finally see this like unstuck person heal himself by just like figuring out what the constant in his life is. And a lot of people who have been following Lost just kind of elevate the constant as like the best episode of the series and one of the best episodes of TV of all time. And it's not alone. There's been other TV sci-fi that have done similar things, but just Lost did it in such a great way. And I don't know how much of a fan of Lost Joe Locke is, but I can imagine him talking to someone like Jack Schaefer, and I know Jack Schaefer's into Lost because there's a lot of references in WandaVision. I believe in interviews and podcasts she's talked about how much he loves Lost, and it seems like Jack Schaefer is tight with Joe Locke, and I wonder if she's just like, this is our constant episode. So I'm trying to apply that in my head to Lilia Calderu.
You think that's what she's setting up here? Is Jack Schaefer setting up this kind of reveal?
I mean,
she uses the phrase like puzzle box a lot, and I don't know who the first one to apply that to like television was, but I know that like Lost is a similar show where that it's about having a mystery that you're working towards solving and developing new mysteries every season and that kind of stuff. So it is clear that she's always like loved that idea. I mean, there was a lot of that in WandaVision, obviously. It was a slow reveal on so many things on that show.
You can find a J.J. Abrams TED Talk where he kind of coined this as the mystery box.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
And for a lot of people, that's been a maddening aspect of J.J. Abrams'
storytelling.
storytelling.
I think he's misused it sometimes.
He has misused and abused it. But for season 1 of Lost is where he was applying it the most, because he had done, before this, Felicity and Alias. He had done a script treatment for Armageddon. He had been kind of like a young kid at a USC who had just like written these great scripts and screenplays, and was kind of like a protege like Steven Spielberg.
Sure.
He got on Spielberg's radar and was just writing these great scripts. And then eventually, I'm trying to remember what his first feature was, because he was just showrunner of Felicity, and his first feature might have been Mission Impossible 3.
Really?
He must have directed it. That was his first high
else.
Pressure feature, and that was successful enough, and he got the Tom Cruise.
Now, if we want to talk about Mission Impossible, I'm very familiar with that series and would love to dive into it.
But before Mission, we do need to do a Mission Impossible rewatch. Before Mission Impossible, he directed the pilot of Lost.
Okay.
And it's one of the best pilots of all time.
And if you know anything about, if you direct the pilot, you get residuals for every episode of the show that comes after. Great move.
He was an executive
producer,
smart move. On the series, and he was a big part of Lindelof and Carlton Cuse's development process for that series at the beginning. So that's why he was very proud of the concept of the hatch in season 1 and the idea of the others and the monster. And we didn't even know it was a smoke monster for the first, stretch of episodes. It was just like, we thought it was a dinosaur, really, or something in the trees. People thought it was a polar bear. They're like, no, it's not the polar bear. It's got to be something bigger than that, because it's eating people and sucking them out of like trees and stuff. But he, I think he loves this idea of like just introducing mystery, and it's not even as important what's in the box. It's just like the fact that the box exists, having that question. But I think since then he has done this so many times on different shows and with movies, and he did this a lot with The Force Awakens, and it just pissed off a lot of people because he didn't have answers for what Snoke was, or the Knights of Ren.
Well, he wasn't supposed to direct those movies. It wasn't his problem.
So he just kind of did that and didn't have like satisfying answers in mind that other directors. And then so by the time it came back to him to direct The Rise of Skywalker, like a lot of people didn't find the answer satisfying. It's just because he didn't really connect with Rian Johnson or with the studio on how to develop that. But Jack Schaefer understands the idea of the mystery box, and she kind of alluded to it in her interviews, saying that she like just loves the idea of a mystery, but there needs to be a justification for the mystery. So she understands the other half of it, and she's doing a lot of mystery boxing on WandaVision and in Agatha, and so that's why I think like it's in her DNA to structure stories this way.
And I think what makes those shows different too is that like, whereas a show like Lost is trying to get multiple seasons, I think Jack Schaefer, WandaVision was kind of envisioned as its own show, right? Its own story. There's not going to be multiple seasons of it. We're not trying to tease something out. They wanted to tell a story and finish it. And I think that's what they're trying to do with Agatha All Along too. It's just like, they're not looking for 3 seasons of the show. They just want to tell this one story and end it at some point. which I think the best Marvel shows have done. That's what Loki was trying to do also. Even Kate Herron, when she developed the first season, she didn't come back for the second season because she was like, I told my story. Like, that was what I wanted to tell. And I think it was so successful. Marvel was like, well, we can go further with this. But I think when you have that in mind, you can do a puzzle box, but you got to know the answers to
you have to know what's in the box.
Questions. You don't have to answer every question. You can have mysteries sitting out there that can come back later. I think that's been helpful for Agatha All Along, is they pulled some things from WandaVision that didn't get wrapped up and have brought them back. But I'm encouraged that I will feel fulfilled by the end of episode 9 with this show.
Doesn't it feel a bit like Agatha, in a lot of ways, is doing kind of a cleanup job from some of the expectation management issues in WandaVision? I thought WandaVision was a great show, but I think one of the issues was just bringing in Evan Peters for a character who's just going to be named Ralph Boner. Just like, it's a funny bit, and I get the recasting bit of like the Aunt Vivification of a lot of characters, and just they come back the next season played by a different actor, and just the idea that Matt Shackman was on Growing Pains, where there was a character named Boner who was a similar type character. So I get the bit, but like just making him a Quicksilver-esque character was just a failure of expectation management.
Yeah.
So now bringing back him and writing this great scene of him just trying to recover from the double mind warp he was under, I thought was really fun. And I feel like between that, with the way they've handled Wiccan and introducing him, but then very clearly telling his backstory and answering all questions to him the following episode, bringing back Senor Scratchy, bringing back the people of Westview, answering the connections to Multiverse of Madness, and trying, it feels like with the sigil and with Lilia putting the sigil on the kid, almost justifies Wanda's behavior in Multiverse of Madness. I know there's alternate takes out there, but it feels like Jack Schaefer is trying to resolve some of the whiplash fans felt between WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, especially because, WandaVision was about really blowing out the Scarlet Witch, solidifying that character, finally naming her the Scarlet Witch, naming Wanda Maximoff that. And also, it kind of set her up on, as she'd been a hero ever since the end of Age of Ultron. She's been on the good side, right? But, kind of giving her more agency and giving her a strong power set, giving her control over her character. And then, it was a whiplash for a lot of people in Multiverse of Madness, where they were like, why is she so angry? Why is she doing all this stuff? And I don't think it's very clear that Wanda, her feelings in the 616 is that, like, I have kids. In every universe, I have kids. I had them here and they're gone. And anytime she talks to someone, they're like, you don't have kids. Like, even Doctor Strange kind of says that to her. And it's like, it really justifies like why she's so angry and desperate, because she knows they exist. They're calling out to her. She wants to find them. And I think you're right that this show is doing a good job of fixing a lot of those, like, well, why this, why that from Multiverse of Madness, and giving her that agency. But I do like Wanda when she's a little angrier. I don't like her just being a part of the Avengers and hanging out. I do like angry Wanda who feels like these people are lying to me and what are they hiding from me? And one thing Jack Schaefer has been able to do with this show, and she mentioned this on the official Marvel podcast, this recent one this week, is that like Kevin Feige and the Marvel have entrusted her to kind of define witches in the MCU. And I think those are big deals. When they trust a director or a creator with that, it's important. Like, James Gunn was allowed to develop all of Cosmic Marvel, basically. We follow the rules that he set in those Guardians of the Galaxy movie. They developed Asgard. They let Kenneth Branagh develop a lot of Asgard, and they've kept a lot of what he developed. And I liked it. It was cool. It's fun. So they're letting Jack Schaefer kind of develop the witch side of Marvel, which is important.
Yeah.
And I think she's doing a great job with it. And it's very fun to see that, because I think, something like No Way Home, where it's like Ned's able to use the sling ring. I loved it. It was fun. It's a great narrative device. But even as it was happening, I was like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Can anyone pick up a sling ring and just do this and it happens?
It felt too easy.
Yeah. But I like this idea that they're saying, like, no, there's a lot of magic out there. Yeah. There are a lot of witches out there. And maybe Ned was just never really properly trained and he does have magic abilities, whatever. But this idea that you can always find a coven of witches in a 3-mile radius. Like, that's a fun rule. that they've developed. This idea that magic lets you live a long time if you have that power. Like, that's a fun rule she's developing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think she's been able to do so much with this show and really define this kind of magic side of witchcraft in Marvel.
Yeah, our colleagues over at the Midnight Boys podcast refer to it as a coin flip, issue that in Hawkeye. He, after training, can like do this like coin flip and do this insane bullseye-esque level of like aiming and precision. And just like after a night of doing it, Kate Bishop is able I'm able to do it too. And like, I love Kate Bishop and the way they've developed her in the MCU. But it's just that moment. It's just that's happened too many times in the MCU, specifically Ned with the sling ring. It's like, no, these are supposed to be skills, and what makes them impressive is that you can imagine a lifetime or at least 10 years of 10,000 hours of mastering this craft, and you can't just say like someone could pick it up overnight.
Yeah, but this is also this is kind of like quantum physics, right? The observer is affecting the object, where it's like because we are watching the movie we're watching the MCU, we're watching the 616 through the lens of KEVIN, right? It is showing us the important moments.
Wow.
We don't just follow a random dude on the street and see him go home, jerk off, eat a pizza, and then fall asleep. Like, that's not the movie. We go to the movies, we come to laugh. We come to cry. We come to be entertained. Everyone we see gets a special ability because we as the audience are affecting them.
Wow.
We are creating them. We are giving them powers.
That
by
is
observation.
like the most brilliant excuse for all plot holes and shortcuts the MCU has taken narratively for its entire existence. I love it.
Go watch a Terrence Malick movie if you just want to see stuff happening that actually happens in real life. And you know what? You're going to be bored, probably. You're going to be like, what was I doing?
That doesn't answer just like the audience need for justification for a character's like acquisition of skills.
I'll put it another way, too. As a longtime wrestling fan, okay, especially as wrestling continues to grow and evolve, like moves get better and more intense. Jake the Snake, his finishing move, his ultimate move is a DDT, okay? A DDT is done by everyone in wrestling all the time. It's done 8 times a match now, all the time. And you might ask yourself, well, why is it a finishing move for Jake the Snake if anyone could just do a DDT? And it's the idea that, like, Jake the Snake does a DDT so well, so precisely, drops his opponent on the perfect spot of their head that it knocks them out completely. And that's what we're seeing in the MCU, right? Like, Kate Bishop is peak human. She is not an average person off the street. She has been trained since she was a young child.
That's right. The opening credits of every Hawkeye episode show all the different skills that she was working on. That's true.
She's a peak human being. She's a human at their perfect. Maybe a mutant? We'll see. But that's why she's able to learn that trick right there. Also, you don't want to watch a show where it takes her 6 years to learn that trick. That's not a fun show.
I think in that moment in Hawkeye on its own wasn't an issue. It's just that's happened a few times before, not just in the MCU. But
have you read a comic book? This is what happens all the time. This is what these are about. These are about the best of the best doing their things. I'll forgive it forever. I will make those justifications.
You know wrestling better than I do. I will just say that whenever you see a wrestler enter the ring, the discipline is evident by just looking at them. The fact that they're there, the fact that they're as fit as they are, shows that these guys have been dedicating 10,000 hours of their lives to this craft.
Okay, I see.
So you kind of respect it just by seeing them.
Yeah.
But, you know, nothing against Jacob Batalon, but it doesn't look like anyone who has ever approached magic, even sleight of hand in his life. And what I like about Agatha, this is all about just what I like about what they're doing with Wiccan and Agatha, is you see that Billy Kaplan was a lover of magic even before Billy Maximoff came into his body. And I think that was important, that this is someone who was like, made a decision from their young age to devote their lives to this energy. And I think William Kaplan needed to be primed in that way. We were talking about this in the break room, that that kid needed to be just a magic lover or someone whose heart was open to magic for the soul of Billy Maximoff to enter him. Without that, if it was someone who's just like very uninterested in magic, I don't know if it would have worked.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, I think that was really smart to kind of show that, this was the perfect vessel for Billy Maximoff to inhabit. And, you know, that car accident, it's interesting. Like, the car accident happens because Wanda created the hex in the first place. So even like creating that Billy in the hex kind of set all these events in motion. And like without Wanda doing that, like it obviously never happens. So it's almost like, did the magic go outside the hex? I don't know. That might be too much. It's just like, I do like the choice to kind of set up William Kaplan as like a magic lover who's like into this, and that Billy Maximoff is so easy to slide into that life and kind of take it over and maybe make the character more goth than he was gonna be on his own. Yeah. But it does work in like an interesting way, and you almost feel like the soul of William Kaplan would be okay with this in a way. Like his parents get to keep having a son, like they get to kind of live on and be happy without him. Which is like very sad to think about.
So
I know.
sad.
And I'm really worried about what happens after the show. Like, the Kaplans are just at home. Where's my boy? The car's been gone for 3 days. What's going on? Like,
I mean, at
it's really
least
sad.
What is worse? Like, to understand that the boy that you brought into the world and then raised for the first 13 years of his life is gone, and then this teen who you've been just trying to connect with over the past 3 years is some other kid, but it's still
almost
a kid.
like that happens to every kid as they grow up with their parents.
Imagine adopting a kid at 13 and spending 3 years with him, and it's a kid who seems to be as great of a kid as Billy Maximoff is, goth teen is. Still seems like a pretty great kid who's still figuring things out, but not like a shit kid who disrespects his parents. But like, what did he do the moment he landed? Is he's like, oh, I'll make dinner, my treat. Like, he's still trying.
Stop worrying.
Like,
is what
it's
he
kind
says.
of like, yes, you have to mourn the 13-year-old who was taken from you, but you also get to like love the 3 years that you spent with this kid that you adopted.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a trade-off, and it's like, I believe Jeff and Rebecca deserve the right to mourn their 13-year-old, and it feels like a denial that they haven't yet.
Should Billy Maximoff tell them the truth at some point?
I think he does. Yeah. I think you have to. Like, God, the fact that this show is even inviting us to ask these questions, I think, is such a virtue of the writing of the show, because I've never had a show that has like made me think that way. There's probably been other shows I'm forgetting, but never in Marvel. Have I thought about this before, that like, oh, a kid died and now a 16-year-old has to decide, like, I came from this other thing, and do I tell them that their kid died?
Yeah. It's pretty heavy. And I thought like this last episode too was so well shot. Like a lot of those kind of like quiet shots in the first half of the episode, both at like the bar mitzvah when he's like reading the Torah, there's kind of like the slow moments. And just like the glowing faces of his parents, like watching him. And even when they come back from the hospital, there's that interesting shot through the window. You just see the balloons. I don't know. I kept thinking like, what? This is like very interesting. Like, what is this?
It felt like The Leftovers.
Yeah.
Damon Lindelof, if you're frustrated with what you saw on Lost and the way that mystery was crafted and structured, good news. There's a show called The Leftovers, which is an adaptation of a novel on HBO. And I feel like everything that Lindelof maybe took some shortcuts on with Lost, he just nails with The Leftovers. He also did Watchmen after the HBO Watchmen series, which I think is
so
perfect.
Good.
Perfect. So, yeah, The Leftovers will break your heart, but that is another show that kind of deals with some similar issues of like grief and how you just live through grief, and do you just let people try to be happy and escape that grief? In the breakdown, the Easter egg breakdown I talked about, like my take on it is that the reason why Billy Maximoff left the hex and flew into the body of this kid is that everything in the hex, including those boys and Vision and the versions of characters that everyone in the town had to play, was grief. Wanda's grief manifested, and that Vision defied grief as love persevering.
Oh, I missed that.
So that like these kids as love persevering, the persevering aspect means that like this hex is going to try to persevere in whatever form that it can.
Yeah.
That grief is going to persevere for Agatha, and that love is going to persevere. And if there is a vessel, an empty vessel for that persevere to hijack, it's going to do it, because it just needs to live on in some way for Agatha.
And it is also a product
for Wanda,
of chaos magic, right?
Yeah.
And what is chaos but unexpected, right? So it's like you can't just tell chaos magic to go away. It's probably trying to fight and survive, right? Any way it can. So that makes a lot of sense. I also wonder if like Billy's spirit, because he is Wiccan, right? He has magical abilities. If it's a little stronger in that way, and maybe a little more has more agency over itself. It doesn't. It was more self-aware and was able to like go on, which makes me wonder if like Tommy will still be alive, or if Tommy's soul latched onto something, or if the big revelation is that like, no, Tommy is gone. Like it's just you now, Billy. In this Variety article, I know Joe Locke is real cagey about like, because they ask like, well, we see Tommy, they've said his name so much now, is like, are we going to see Tommy? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I know, but I can't say.
Yeah, he said he knows the answer. He just can't say.
And like, what is more powerful, that he gets to be with his brother again, or just like that, no, he's gone. And like, that's something you have to live with now. Like, that's a burden you have to carry. And will that drive Wiccan as he goes on, much like his mother, to be like, no, I know he's out there somewhere. Even though you're telling me he's gone, I'm going to keep fighting for him.
Yeah. God, I really needed this conversation, Brandon, because like we talked about this on the break room yesterday. Gina and I reacted to the episode Wednesday night. We worked on the script for the Easter egg breakdown, but I still feel like there's just some emotional issues I needed to talk through with what the show is doing.
It's a very heavy thing to lay on people.
Yeah. It's insane. And I think the writers understand it. I think a lot of people watch this episode and maybe just aren't thinking as much about the metaphysics of it. And it's going to dawn on them as these episodes keep coming out and as they revisit the show, everything that entails. So just looking ahead to lock it in for episode 7, what I think will happen is that Lilia, by flipping over the tarot cards at this table, will have these moments where she will flash back to her younger self and she will say certain things. And I think what it's going to look like is, did you ever watch Haunting of Hill House on Netflix?
Yes.
So when it's revealed that a ghost that we've been seeing throughout the series, it is one character whose death just kind of links everything together in one of the coolest sequences, the coolest reveals of just her body, kind of like aristocrating down through the floors. And I think we're going to get a similar moment with Lilia. I think we're going to see like her body physically falling back through time. Like, and we see close-ups of Patti LuPone's face as she's like slow motion going, oh, and you see her body kind of drifting through an inky black void, falling up. And I feel like we're going to see that falling back into younger versions of herself and maybe future versions of herself. And she's going to be unstuck in time.
Excited.
Yeah.
And at some point she'll be Glinda the Good Witch.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, she's going to go back into the 1939 Victor Fleming film. And I think that it's also going to include going back to Sicily and to her maestra and going back to her origins because, the spectral form of death appeared behind her maestra. And I think
that's so important.
It's very important. Lilia has always had Rio's number. She goes, death comes for us all. And she said, don't think for a second that I forgot what you said in the recording studio. So I think she has been on Death's case since the beginning.
And I think this show has also kind of shown that all of these witches had their own selfish motivations. That kind of line where Jennifer Cale is like, this is always about power. You know what I mean? Like for all of us. And, Lilia doesn't fight that either. She's like, yeah, we're all just trying to stay alive pretty much. Yeah. So they all have been cheating death through magic in an interesting way. But, in this like kind of revelation this last episode that Agatha was involved in a lot of death. She lost count of how many witches she'd killed, but also we found out she was on the Titanic.
On the
Hindenburg. Yep. It's like, this woman is around a lot of death. I don't know if they're implying she caused any of those incidents to happen.
I think she did. I think, she steered the helmsman into the iceberg. Just told him, I'll take it from here.
She's like, let me borrow those binoculars, Sonny. You don't need those anymore. She was at 3 Mile Island. She was at Chernobyl.
Well, we know Wolverine was at 3 Mile Island.
Yeah, we know
I'm trying to think some historical events that we haven't. Yeah. All right, let's look ahead to this week on New Rockstars. So tomorrow, today's Sunday. Tomorrow, Monday, will be our episode breakdown of The Penguin, episode 5. Oh, so this coming week will be Venom, The Last Dance. So
our last dance with old Venom.
So in addition to episode 7, so the way it will work is Jessica and I will be reacting to Agatha episode 7 on Wednesday night at New Rockstars here on the New Rockstars channel. Thursday will be 11 a.m. on the Break Room channel, our episode discussion, our Q&A, and it's going to be myself and Brandon and Jessica and special guest Jamie Jurek.
Oh.
She's wonderful.
Very
If you
fun.
don't know her already, follow her on all social media, but she's such a great WandaVision, Agatha, all things Marvel expert. So she'll be joining us. And then on the New Rockstar channel on Thursday, it's going to be our ending explained, post-credit scene explained about Venom The Last Dance, because we want to get those answers to you right away. Friday on the New Rockstars channel will be our Easter egg breakdown of Agatha episode 7. And then on Saturday will be our breakdown of Venom: The Last Dance, Easter egg breakdown, all the stuff you missed in it. We're also gonna have like a special House of the Dragon season 2 compilation video that's just gonna put all of those breakdowns there for you together. We like to put those all in one place for you, especially as we're looking ahead to A Night of the Seven Kingdoms in 2025 from that universe. And then Sunday will be another episode of the Sneak Peek where we'll look ahead to the finale of Agatha or any other big Marvel news coming out this week. So a lot of stuff happening.
A lot of stuff. Do you have any predictions for the Venom Last Dance post-credit scene?
God, I'm just worried. Has
Feige seen them yet?
Yeah, that is really the question. Like, does he get access to them? I think he's always listed as a producer on the Venom movies.
I know, but maybe they keep him out of the room. I don't know.
Like, don't tell him. Like, there's no way he would have approved what happened in the Morbius post-credit scene.
That's
right?
what I think. Or even like in the last Venom. The Last Carnage, or Venom Meets Carnage, or Venom 2. I don't think he even would have liked that.
Him licking the screen, the TV screen. Yeah, that's why I like the Let There Be Carnage post-credit scene was pretty intense. So I really don't know. I feel like it's going to be something Null related. Because I think Null will be in the movie. It's like main runtime. He's going to be like a Thanos and Guardians of the Galaxy cameo.
Venom never meets Null at any point, I don't think.
And then I think we'll see like what Null, a hint at his plan in the post-credit scene.
I mean, I'm into here's the thing. I don't think like this version of Venom, the Tom Hardy version, comical Venom, hero Venom, fighting Spider-Man is entertaining for me. But like if they want to like get Tom Hardy out, if Tom Hardy's done, he's like, I've had a good run, take the symbiote and put him on like a new person who can actually be like a villainous version of Venom. That's fine. If you want to set that up for Spider-Man to fight, fine. But yeah, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Get Andrew Garfield back.
Yeah.
Get a new guy to play Eddie
That's more entertaining to me.
And make that a Venom story.
Is Venom somehow winding up in Andrew Garfield's universe? Like, that's way more entertaining.
Yep.
Did he say he fought? No, he didn't get to fight an alien yet. That's right.
No, he hasn't met anybody from outer.
He was jealous that he didn't get to.
So
he's just had a dark timeline without a love.
Yeah, he's done some other stuff.
Yeah, is he more depressed when he gets back after No Way Home? Like, is he like, hey, that was nice, I got to save that girl, but I think I'm more depressed now. I think I'm really getting screwed over here.
They got a Doctor Strange in their universe.
Doctor Strange.
Any kid can pick up a sling ring and be a wizard in that universe.
They got Avengers. All I got's this like subway car underground that my dad left me. Dang, that's tough.
But so much Coldplay and skateboarding and
very cool.
The music is great. All right, let's end this episode with what
we're watching.
Thanks for joining in it. Jessica
I'm
never
excited.
does. She just
I'm
lets
excited.
me scream it like
It's
a
all right.
dummy.
No,
What are you watching that's not connected to anything else?
Oh, baby. I finally caught up on Slow Horses. I'm just getting into season 4 now. What a show, man. Really good, tight seasons, like 6-episode seasons. One thing I really like about that show, too, it's kind of like in real time. Like the show, each season is just like one day, basically. It's like 24 a little bit, where it's very tightly written. Great little story. If you're into spy stuff, like very fun. And just Gary Oldman giving an incredible performance every season. So good. Really like that show. I'm watching The Challenge, buddy.
Hell yeah, you are.
Kylan the Calculator, if you're out there, this last episode, they made you do the math. That's not easy, man. It's not your fault. Like, you're still really smart. You're good. You're doing great out there.
You're better than anyone else at doing the math. And who is it? Tori, who's like, she was a math major, or is that Laurel?
Not Tori.
Laurel says Tori's like, what is plus or minus?
Listen, I love Tori. Tori, you're my girl.
Tori's fun.
I usually draft you on my fantasy teams. I got screwed this year. Zach drafted you first, and I'm so angry about it.
So Brandon and Zach are part of a challenge fantasy league, just to give everyone context.
Yeah. My team I'm only down. All I have left is Bananas and Olivia. Olivia loved the dark hair, looking great. You and Theo together, it's just great. Yeah. I don't know if you still are. I have to stay out of the social media drama. That's the rules of the fantasy league, because you can't like try and figure out who's going to get eliminated. But I'm pulling for you too.
I have so much respect for competitors on the challenge. I've talked about it several times on this show. The fact that they're so bad at math is very frustrating to me, because math is one of these things that we all have education in. If you've gone through the American public school system, which I know it's not great, but for these folks who are all like kind of, maybe they're either millennials or they're Gen Zers on the younger end, but your education was pretty good.
Come on.
We'll see what Gen Alpha has to go through.
Yeah.
They're just going to let their VR headsets do the math for them. I don't know how you are all this bad at math. And that you're all okay being this bad at math.
Come on, guys.
And that you defend being bad at math in the Talking Heads interviews. Like, it's not hard in the off season just to do some flashcards.
Yeah, like CT learned this lesson, right? He worked on puzzles in the off season. A lot of you have been working on puzzles. That's smart. That's good, but work on your basic arithmetic, and learn the order of operations. That's very important too.
I think it is already borderline offensive that they call Kylan the calculator. Yeah. The fact that is a superpower for him is crazy. That should be something we all can do.
It's basic math. Paying attention. Also, everyone, work on your swimming. Constantly work on breath control. There's always gonna be one where you have to dive down. You get life vests. Just work on the swimming. That's all.
I can't remember who it was this season, but she's like, "Look, I'm a model. I can't hurt this face." I'm like, "Then you shouldn't be on the challenge."
Oh, Ainsley? No, Ashley? No, Ainsley.
Right? I love you, but
Yeah.
the challenge is not the reality show for you.
No.
Do Big Brother.
This is
do
dangerous.
The Anonymous. Do Survivor. This is meant for people who aren't afraid to get injured.
Olivia took. Was it a tomato or something to the face?
Yes.
In that
it broke her nose. She has a new face now.
And she's still showing up.
That's what the challenge is. The challenge is supposed to be the ringer, the gauntlet, the gladiator arena. It's only meant for people who are just like kind of freaks of nature in a good way, who are okay acquiring these different skills between being peak physical condition, understanding challenge in universe trivia, because that's always a challenge.
Oh, yeah, always
eating
learn.
Disgusting things.
Yeah.
Doing hall brawls and pole challenges. Like you have to do this stuff. So just to be like, I'm a model and I want to be on the challenge. No, fuck off. You got to take some punches to the face.
Yeah, go on Big Brother if you want to be a model. All right,
That's right.
Get out of here. Definitely always learn the order of the challenge seasons.
Yes.
There's 40 of them. That's tough, man.
It's a lot now.
Tough.
It's a lot. And it's crazy where they're like, Bananas, you're on that season. It's like, but I've seen Bananas be turned into a backpack by CT. I understand if he's missing some gray matter.
That wasn't Bananas.
No,
he didn't get backpacked.
CT turned Bananas into the Bananas
that
backpack.
Wasn't Bananas, was
that
it?
was Bananas.
No way.
It's like the most famous thing about Bananas and CT is he turned. That's like when Bananas got humiliated. It was like season 10. It was like a while back. Bananas was a younger man, not as and CT was a younger man too. I mean, CT's still a beast.
He's still got it going.
So we talked a lot about. I just want to say I am watching Love Is Blind, and I know you are as well. I'm not all the way through it, but you and I have talked about this off camera, both for the challenge and Love Is Blind. Make the producer a character on the show who can explain to viewers why certain things were edited out. Because it is insane where you just put the Poochie title card up there like Leo was too awkward, so we cut him out of the show. Like, no. Leo you can find on TikTok now. This guy actually has a pretty good sense of humor, but I still don't like him because he talks about being rich all the goddamn time. So, but like, you owe it to the viewers. It would be the most watched episode. You could get more watch time, Netflix.
Would you like that at the end of the season?
Well, that's kind of what
the producer unstuck from time, going back through.
That's what I wish the after show was, or the season wrap up, where they're all kind of like, but they just talk about their social media drama.
Well, that's the challenge has the same problem with its reunion episodes at the end, where it's just like drama I don't care about. Like I want the real, I want the nitty gritty.
I want to know why. Like, I hope this season of the challenge they talk about how they really all hate living in that castle.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm interested in.
Again, I don't get to look at much social media, but I know that chatter was big amongst the contestants that house sucked. Though what I do like about that house is that everyone can hear everything.
Yeah, I know.
Terrible place to take a shit,
whisper.
But like you can hear what everyone's saying. You can hear the shit talking, and that's smart. That's a good thing.
So we'll leave it there for this episode of the Sneak Peek. Brandon, this has been such a good conversation.
I love it.
I needed a few days to think about this episode of Agatha and to really think about what the show is trying to do right now. And I feel like you're in that spot too.
Yeah. And if it's not clear, also watching The Penguin. I know that's related to what we do, but if you have not checked out The Penguin, it's a really great show. It's one of the best, like kind of like one of these comic book shows or movies turned into a show thing. You don't really need to have seen the Batman to even enjoy it. It's great own little story, and it's doing a great job. And some incredible performances on that show, and it takes swings in its episodes, and it's fun.
And for anyone who's like, New Rockstars is covering Agatha but not the Penguin, no, we are covering the Penguin every week on New Rockstars. We are doing in-depth Easter egg breakdowns of the show. We love it as well. And we're not going to say, is Agatha better, is the Penguin better? These are two stories that are actively in development, and I don't know if either of them are going to stick the landing, but I can say I am loving both of them just for very different reasons week after week. I'm looking for these shows for different things, and they both are satisfying those needs respectively in different ways.
Big time.
So this hat has been, maybe you didn't see it because it's sigiled, but there is a hat here with a sigil on it, and you can get it at nerdriot.shop. It's one of my favorite things that our merch store has ever put out. But also, if you watched Agatha episode 6, you know there is Boner Time, Boner Family Reunion
it's a
shirt.
Great shirt. Pitch a tent.
You can get this at nerdriot.shop. You can be wearing this shirt or get it for that special nerd in your life for a holiday gift option. Nerdriot.shop. Follow Brandon at
Brandon Barrick on X. I haven't made an X in a very long time.
Yeah, or X is kind of gradually falling apart. So if you don't want to create an account on X, it's fine by us. But be sure to follow all of us on the Break Room every week. Break Room's been a blast. And subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars network. Follow me at EA Voss, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.